Hello, Raleigh Cemetery people. All right, it is now the 23rd, and it's time for us to start the tour. We've got people here just waiting on Dale to begin the show, and we probably got about 30 people, somewhere around in there. News media hadn't made it yet, but we've got a pretty good crowd, with probably more to come. So we got good weather, and we're waiting on Dale to start the tour.
Okay, if you're about ready to get started, why don't you kind of gather around here and I'll get this going. Don't want to lose you before we get started. It's a good sized group today. I'm glad to see this. This is the ideal sized group. We've done this officially 3 times and unofficially a 4th time, and every time the numbers have tripled. So I thought today, gosh, if it triples from what size we had the last time, I'm going to be in trouble. Because I can't do getting that many people through here safely. It would have been a trip. But my name is Dale Schaefer, and I'm a volunteer out here. I've been coming out here since 2011, and actually there was one person who's taking the filming over there who really was responsible for getting me out here because of his filming. I had been told about the Raleigh Cemetery from a woman I worked with at Bolton High School, and she said, and she knew I had an interest in cemeteries, and she said, "Oh, you really got to see the Raleigh Cemetery. Just be prepared." Well, I came out here and I was a little shocked, more than shocked, I was appalled. And I came in right in here, and I had been involved at Elmwood before, and I looked at the dates of some of the stones right in here, and I really wasn't all that impressed. But then I saw some stones up there. I thought I saw some stones up there, so I walked up there, and I started looking at the dates on some of those stones, and I was absolutely blown away, because the stones up there far preceded any of the stones at Elmwood Cemetery, which now gave me a hint that there was something special here. So I got to doing a little research, and I ran across a video that Kevin did in 2010 of the Raleigh Community Council attempting to do a cleanup out here. And they did do a small portion of it, and that perked my interest. And we have a lot to thank Kevin for, not the least of which was a cleanup last weekend. And I know you're filming, Kevin, but can you tell us who was out here last weekend to clean up?
Myself, Tim Joyce, and who was the other individual?
Eddie Latham.
And Terry over here. So we had 4 people that came out. No lawnmowers were killed in this cleanup, even though I think the cemetery has claimed 9 lawnmowers up to this date. So, yeah.
It eats lawnmowers. We're hoping to change that soon. But who knows?
Yeah.
All right, a little history background here. First of all, I'd like you to sort of step out of time and go back almost 200 years. And that's one of the reasons why I think this plot of ground is so special. This is one of the remaining places in Shelby County that still exists, largely in its original state, as it was intended. The only other place that I know of, other than the Tillman Bettis Family Cemetery in Midtown, and the McGevney House downtown. McGevney House dates from 1838, the Bettis plot sometime in the early 1820s. Other than those 2, this is the oldest existing thing I know of. Yes? Okay, I don't know that there are stones there. Are there that old? Okay, possibly, okay. I know there was a cemetery out at Big Creek before that even, probably preceded that. I know there are no stones there that are as old as the ones in this cemetery. So this, yes?
I would just like to mention a friend of mine, Bill Green in Transcanada. There were wood stones here one time, and not here anymore.
Oh, I'm sure.
There are
hundreds upon hundreds of people buried in this cemetery in unmarked graves. It's one of the reasons why this will never ever be an active cemetery again, because we do not have the records and we don't know where people are buried.
They don't do that in our church.
Yeah. So I want you to kind of step back in time. There's no freeway over there. There's no noise. There's no Raleigh LaGrange. None of those buildings are there. There's probably a trail going down called the Raleigh LaGrange Road over here. And this road made a bend, and East Street was called East Street, but it didn't always go through. It just stopped basically at the bend and then became Raleigh LaGrange. And this was the fringe of the city of Raleigh, the town of Raleigh. Raleigh was founded in the mid-1820s. Memphis dates its anniversary from 1819. So, and Memphis and Raleigh at that time were rivals. Actually, people thought that Raleigh was going to be the premier city in Shelby County because the weather was supposedly nicer out here. It was clearer. The people were nicer. Memphis itself was seen as a rough, dirty, nasty river town full of river rats. And this seemed to be where Shelby County was going to mushroom from. And so in the mid-1820s, they moved the courthouse out here. The jail was out here. And Raleigh at that time, over the next 10 years or so, became a fairly large community, around 3,000 at its max. And that's where most of these people came from. Now, where we're standing right now is what I call this the new part of the cemetery. Most of the latest burial here on this side was 1985. There's one down there in 1963. But most of these date from the early years of the 20th century. We're going to start, though, back in the old part of the cemetery. And people are often curious. There's always talk of a church out here. At one time, they say that this was founded by the Cumberland Presbyterian Church. I don't think that is true. I think the cemetery existed before the church existed. And later on, the church took over the cemetery. When the church, and I believe the church, we've always wondered, and I recently was reading in a book called Reveries of Raleigh by a woman that lived out here, and she remembers in her childhood the church building being right around the corner there, or basically on the corner. And they were always told that that had been the church building here, the Cumberland Presbyterian Church from the cemetery. And it ultimately became the Raleigh Schoolhouse before it was torn down, and Coleman School was built. And there are pictures. I have a book over there that has some old pictures of Raleigh, and I believe there's a picture taken of the school kids in that school building. So if that is the picture of that church, it's the only one existing that I know of. So the boundaries have morphed. We've lost some of the ground. We've gained some ground. Right now, we're guessing there's probably 7 or 8 acres left of the cemetery. Before the road, the cemetery, or the land, went down to Austin Peay. There was no East Street there. There were no buildings over there. And if you look at aerial photographs of this area in around the 1950s, you see how the boundaries of the cemetery probably were much extended in that direction. There was no new Raleigh LaGrange down there. The bluff sloped down to the river nicely. We know that graves have been lost in that area because of poor building and erosion. And so the cemetery has lost some of its ground, but it is still largely intact. Any questions so far? All right. Well, as we're walking, kind of follow me. Walk very carefully. I'm not very steady on my feet, so I always carry this. Step high. There are vines in the grass. There are twigs in the grass. We tried to pick up as much as we could, but walking can be a little hazardous. So just walk slow and carefully, and I think you'll be okay. Yeah, question?
I mentioned one thing about walking through here
No, it was a few years ago.
A few years ago, we was walking through here in the wintertime. But I told you about that grave. All of a sudden, yellowback on the ground. Just be careful when you're walking. Just be careful, because they wore us out.
We also saw a couple of snakes when I was out here.
Oh, they're around. Ironically, all the hours I've spent here, I've never seen a snake, but I know they're here. They've got to be here. I have seen the yellow jacket stuff. All right, we're going to over here.